guest today is Charlie Harary, an attorney, American investor, strategic advisor, and professor who has gained fame as a motivational speaker, radio show host, and television personality. Harary gives speeches on topics of personal growth, business strategy, and productivity. He hosts a weekly podcast entitled The Charlie Harary Show. Charlie also hosts a podcast entitled Unlocking Greatness, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs, leaders, change agents, influencers, and experts, intending to understand how they achieve their success. Charlie also wrote a book, Unlocking Greatness, which is right here. We're going to discuss it later on. The unexpected journey from the life you have to the life you want. Welcome, Charlie, to Yentas in the city.
It is an honor to be here.
Welcome.
I just want to tell you, Charlie, way before we thought of making this show, Rabbi Stulberger was honored at the Valley Torah. And I, unfortunately, everybody knew who you were. I didn't, the Israeli me. And you made a speech, and I have attention deficit. I don't stay in one place for a long time. And you captivated me so much that I found myself, my husband is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm writing notes. He goes, what are you writing notes about? I'm like, about what he's talking about. And he looked at me like, you are weird. And then I ran to Rabbi Stulberger and I said, who is this guy? He goes, you don't know who Charlie Harary is? I'm like, no, but I want to meet him.
And here we are.
And here we are, and I want to tell you, you are phenomenal. And you know, when we started the show, and we made a list of all these people that we want to interview. You are the top of that list.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you so much. And I'm happy you sat through it. I also can't sit, but I appreciate you sitting through it. And
Charlie, we are obsessed with your book. Oh my gosh. The Yentas now have adopted a new tagline. Be, do, have. Okay.
Awesome.
I'm adopting that. Etsy and I are on a path of act like the person you want to be.
That's it.
We want to be healthy, skinny, minis. So, and Etsy was saying notes. I was looking at my book. I took so many notes in your book. If you can see, I took so many notes because I really I love the book. It was great.
Thank you.
And really, welcome to Yentas in the City, Charlie. It's truly an honor to have you on our show. You're one of the most well-known inspirational speakers in the world. For those of our listeners that aren't well-versed with your background, I would love it if you could please share your background with us from childhood to adulthood in a nutshell.
Wow.
A man from Canarsie, New York, who never forgot where he came from.
That's right. Thank you for noting that, and thank you so much, both of you, for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here, and I really, really appreciate your kindness. I grew up in Canarsie, Brooklyn, and went to Yeshiva Flatbush in Brooklyn, New York. And when I was after my year in high school, I was fortunate enough to spend almost 2 years in a yeshiva right in the old city.
Wow.
And that moment really shifted the course of my life. I had a great education growing up. I wasn't very inspired as a kid. I also had a very hard time sitting. My mom would tell me that if I was a kid today, I may have more medication to take every single day, but back then they didn't know enough. So I really couldn't sit, and I was not a great student. That's how I ended up being a lawyer. I was in trouble so much, I figured either I was going to be in jail or represent people in jail, so I had to pick which one.
You took the latter.
I took the latter. I figured I needed these skills anyways at some point, and Israel was really a moment in my life that shifted it in terms of seeing just how much faith and spirituality could enhance your life. And then I came back and went to college and then ultimately law school. Started my life as a corporate lawyer, then transitioned to the business world, and all the while, really sort of felt that not enough people know the beauty of Judaism, the beauty of spirituality, the beauty of God. And so wherever God sends, I'm just, trying to follow his path and try to do the things that I think he wants me to do. And so here we are.
Doing an amazing job doing.
I hope so. Here we are. And the whole book thing was really, over time, speaking to people, what I realized was that, and this isn't a new idea, but it just sort of hit me like a ton of bricks that people are really incredible and they don't know it. Like if you'd ask me like what's the greatest problem in the world today, like how can I sum it up in one line? It's that line. People don't know who they are. Period. End of story. We're a soul. We have infinite amount of ability. The world tells us we're a body, and if we don't follow the following this, then we're not enough. We believe it because we don't know any better. And we live our lives following somebody else's perspective of what's important, valuable, successful. And as a result, we tell ourselves, I can or I can't, I will or I won't. And that's the life where there's this disconnect between who we are and who we could be. And then I started to do some of the research, and it's in neuroscience, it's in spirituality, it's everywhere.
It's neuroplasticity.
Exactly. Right. My house, my kids, if they tell their words, they're like, oh my gosh, neuroplasticity, I don't want to hear it anymore. But that's what it is. The way Hashem built us was literally to be a vessel for an infinite energy. Our brain is malleable. We can grow muscles. We can change and adapt. We're constantly an adapting machine, right? And we just don't know it. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is such a tragedy. And so that's what this book really is about. And my hope and prayer is that people read it and hopefully realize who they are.
And I'm sure that your journey has taken you to meet so many incredible people along the way, this journey of yours, meeting all these incredible people that you helped to change their lives as well.
Thank God. And I've been blessed. God has given me great mentors in life and really people of different stripes and backgrounds. And you see just people that are so far from each other in physical mentality and politics, and they're exactly the same. And that's the one thing that I've seen. People are so different, and they're exactly the same.
Actually, that brings me to, Yentas in the city have something in common with you, Charlie. We started Yentas in the city because we believed we can change the world for a better place by bringing communities together. Because, we noticed, especially with the younger generation, that, a lot of them are moving away because people are like, telling them you're different or you're this. And we decided we created Yentas in the city, actually right after we saw you speak.
Oh, wow.
And because, one thing I noticed when we were in that banquet is, some are Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, some are less, Israelis, American. And we realized that people are more the same than they realize. And we realize also that although some people make you feel that they're better than you, no one person is better than anyone else. Right. So we decided to do this kind of to bring the community and discuss different things and to show people, even though we think different and we do different things, we're very similar. Now, having a mentor, my mentor was my father. So having a mentor in your life is truly fundamental, particularly in today's world. Can you please tell us who is your mentor and why did that mentor made you believe, I don't know if he made you or she made you believe that you could change the world and what it meant to you?
So I've had so many, really, so many parents, both of them. My father, immigrant, hard work, made things out of nothing. My mother, her kindness. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, living down the block from my grandfather and grandmother, who taught me like everything, happiness post-Holocaust. My grandmother, she should rest in peace. My grandparents all should rest in peace. My grandmother from Syria. I got a set that comes from. Half of me is Ashkenazi. I come from the Munkach. Half of me is Syrian. So
Wait, you're half Ashkenazi and half Sephardic?
Right. Yeah.
You're an Ashkefard.
I'm a total Ashkefard. Like I say, everything I eat either has rice in it or margarine. Like that's my life. And so I saw my grandmother. She's rest in peace, is like 4'7", from Syria, the tallest woman in the world. You know those types? They're built with like steel. You know what I'm talking about? Like those. And
I have an Egyptian one.
Exactly. Yeah, they come from the same stuff, by the way. They come from the same cloth. The same cloth, right? You don't mess with them, but they're the kindest. You know what I'm talking about? All of her sons were like towering, but they bowed to her. You know that type?
Yeah, we know the type.
The greatest. The world was built on the backs of those people. And then, you know, at work, my rabbis, like really so many, along the way, I've had so many different types of people that at least have been guides for me. And everyone taught me something a little bit different, right? I had a mentor growing up. He's not right now, he's the president of the Orthodox Jew. His name is Moshe Bain. He took care, when I was my first year in law, I never saw a lawyer involved in the community because he worked so hard, and I connected to him, and he invited me for Shabbos, and he spoke to me, and he taught me that even though you're super busy at work, you got to worry about the community. And my rabbi that I'm with right now in Woodmere taught me about how God loves you. Like along the way, you know, you see people in your life, and this is something that I think people don't get. People don't realize that everybody has something that you can learn from that they're really amazing at. It's not everything. But
absolutely, yeah.
And when you take that, like, you know, it's like if you're playing a video game and like some person has this gold coin and has that gold coin, right? And if you go through life, and I should do it only better. I wish I could be even better at this. You see people, if you look closely and you listen, you'll see that what they really care about and what they're really excellent at. You could take that one thing from them. And this is what you were saying earlier, that I totally agree with you. The reason why people think that other people are worse or better is because they see the other person in comparison to them, not in who they are, right? So I was at a conference once, and a woman got up, and she spoke about her journey to Judaism. Now, I don't know if we compared observance who would win, but it doesn't matter because her journey to Judaism was so inspiring. I was so humbled by what this person did. How could I judge by how she looks or what she does? Just knowing her story taught me so much about what it means to overcome challenge and to fight for truth. And so everyone has something that you can be inspired by. And if we look for what's great about them and not how they compare to us, then people start to really be inspiring, and you really gain from people, and you really are humbled by just how great people are around you.
Right. Oh, yeah. I'm a therapist by trade, and my clients inspire me every day. The clients that I deal with on a daily basis, everyone around us, you can learn something new from everyone. Really.
I found I did a show last year on people that recovered from addictions, right? And I'm in the middle of the show, and I'm like, these people are heroes, like heroes. They were addicted to something. And they hit bottom, and they didn't give up, and they grew. They're like, nobody knows they're heroes, but they're actually heroes.
Heroes, right?
Yeah.
And like, you can learn so much.
And you know what's sad, Charlie? Karen and I really saw that, and we saw like people, and a lot of our interviews, like we're going to interview Rabbi Hayer right now. You mentioned your grandparents next week, right after you.
Oh, great.
But, you know, we noticed that people are really, they don't look at people's struggles, and they don't look at certain things that people do. I'm sorry about that. The phones keep on ringing and ringing. They forgot to. And they don't look at people as they are, or they're heroes, or they had a more difficult journey. They look down at them, and it was very sad for her as a therapist. And I'm like one of those Israelis that have a big mouth and doesn't like when people pick on the weak. And
we love you. We love you. You kidding me? That's how Israel's a country. That's how you guys were able to survive. Take care of everybody.
I just had a meeting with the consul general at his office the other day, and he goes, "Etty, you never like stay quiet. You do so much for the community." I go, "Well, if I stayed quiet, people are not going to do certain things." And he goes, "I guess you're right."
Totally.
Yeah, we're Yentas for a reason, you know?
Exactly.
You know, Charlie, I wanted to ask you, what was it like to be a scholar in residence for the very first time, to be able to share what you were passionate about, to not have to have like a PhD in Judaism to be able to express yourself. What was that like? Take us back to that.
Oh my gosh, I'll take you to that moment. It's all from God. Like nothing is mine. It's all God. Just to put it out there. I am a zero. Whatever God sends me, it's him. It'll always be him. And I hope I'll always be able to make him happy. My first scholar in residence took place at a big shul in the city. My friend, who was older than me in law school, became the rabbi. And he wanted something different on the program. So he said, listen, I see you're out there a little bit. Why don't you come to my shul? I was like, okay. To tell you the truth, it was in February, and I called him, and I'm like, listen, I think we should cancel. It looks like it's going to snow, and no one's going to come. He's like, it says 0 to 1 inch. You're coming. I'm like, you're sure? Because I don't know. Like, you can really cancel. Like, don't worry. I won't be offended. He's like, you're coming. Okay? I get there. Listen to how my first scholar residence started. He puts me up in some really nice apartment in the city for one of his top lay leaders. I get there with my wife. We pawned our kids off. My wife, I'm prepared. It's like I'm nervous. It's like all these fancy smart people, and I'm like you said, I'm not a scholar. I'm like, and I think in my 30s maybe, and the balabas, the lay leader, comes out to take me to shul, right? So he says, hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm like, hi, I'm so-and-so. He goes, I hear you're the scholar in residence. Yeah, he goes, but you're not a scholar. Yeah, I'm not. He goes, so why are you in residence? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't be here. I'm like, you're right. I'm gonna spend Shabbat in the room, and you'll tell me how it goes. And I remember walking to shul being like, what am I doing here? Like, they're gonna look, what am I doing? And it was such an incredibly humbling experience when you realize how little you are. And then, thank God, the first speech, then the second speech, and everyone has something to share, and it's different, and I didn't have to, and this is something that I got, multiple times that, I struggle with, especially in the beginning, was I tried to be other people. Like I tried to, and I'm not other people. I'm not a rabbi, and I'm not a scholar. I'm a regular guy. And the more I was able to just be me, the more, if you liked it, great. And if you didn't, great. And what I found,
I actually think that's what's beautiful about you, that you're not a scholar and you're not a rabbi. And I think that's why people connect to you, really. Because when you made the speech, originally, I thought, it's some rabbi from something. And then you spoke about Israel, and you spoke about so many topics in one speech, and there was such a connection. And I couldn't even, at the end of your speech, I couldn't, finger. And I think it's the authenticity that you are just yourself on the stage.
I hope so. And thank you for saying that. And that I learned it then, that first time. And I learned it again. I once heard a rabbi speak, and he was excellent. And I went to him and I said, what's your secret? You know what he said to me? He said, don't be somebody you're not, because the audience, I'm working on it still. We're always working on being authentic, right? When you're in front of other people, there's always guards that go up, right? You're always,
But you say act like the person you want to be, right?
Yeah. So how do you balance that, right?
Right.
That's a great question. Okay, so here's how it works, right? The person that you want, they love this. Such a great question. Okay, let's delve in. Now we're in business now. We're getting into the book.
No, but I want to say one more thing before you say it. In the book, you say, that famous line, fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that in the book. So can you tie that all together?
Yeah, totally. Okay. So for those, this is great. So for those that we're talking about a strategy for how to grow in life. And the way the strategy works is act as if, be, do, have. Mm-hmm. Fake it till you make it. What is that? Okay, watch. When you get inspired, okay, let's work this together now. You get inspired, right? In your moments of inspiration, who do you see when you get inspired? When someone gets inspired, right, they don't see somebody else. You know what they see? They see the real them. I'm that mom. I guarantee you both never get inspired and go, man, I could be that dad. Because it's not who you are.
Right?
You're not. I never get inspired and say, man, I can really be the best Queen of England. Like, I can be the queen. Like, if I just faked it till I made it. Like, if I just acted as if.
There has to be an element of reality there.
Right.
It's even deeper. What it is your potential inside you. Your soul knows you're built for greatness. And whenever the world slows down or speeds up in the right way, you get a glimpse of who you really are. I eat like that. I talk like that. I act like that. I'm this kind. I'm this patient. I'm this charismatic. I am this person. I'm just being held down by my reality, but who I really am. Remember, the physical world is bound by time and space. The spiritual world is not. And you're a soul before you're a body. Your soul doesn't need time and space to know who it is. So a person looks in the mirror and goes, I'm not healthy. Because their body may tell them that. Their soul goes, I don't care about your body. You are where your head is. You are where your thoughts are.
I agree 100%.
And as soon as you decide that I'm healthy, your body can catch up after a year to who you are. Right? That's the whole concept of tshuva. It's the whole concept of how Yom Kippur works. So when you really live, act as if, what you're really doing is you're acting with your soul. You're being the realest you have, right? So I'll give you an example. If I get up and speak and I want to be authentic, right? And I'm not healthy, or I just yesterday started to be healthy, but I've committed, I'm healthy. I've committed myself that I'm healthy. Act as if, right? So I go to the store and I have all this neuroplasticity that says eat the donut. But I am beyond my neuroplasticity. So I go, but that's not me anymore. But your brain says, what do you mean it's not you? We have hundreds of neural connections that say, when you walk in store, you donuts. And you tell your brain, I don't care, I can have 1 billion neural connections. I'm not my brain. I run my brain. I control my brain. So when that guy gets up and speaks, who is he really? Is he a collection of neural connections, or is he the soul that made a choice? That's act as if. You see that?
Wow.
You're
Yes.
not faking really. You're
just bringing what's inside of you already.
And the reason why it feels inauthentic is because your brain has all these connections, because you have all these habits that tell you otherwise.
You know,
Is that similar to NLP? I've noticed everybody's because a lot of people right now, I don't even know what NLP, like I don't know, but I see all these people with the NLP. It sounds very similar, but
I wanted to say, you also talked about, if you go to a concert and people are really happy at a concert and they're like, I love you, yelling it to the person in the concert. So Etty and I just went to Shwekey's concert, and Benny Friedman, they were in LA. That was our last concert. And so if you were thinking, I love you, Shwekey, it's not that you love the person you're seeing. You said you love the feeling that you have of what you're feeling from being in the concert.
Exactly. And that's a very big difference, right? Because when you hear, when you take the feeling you have, which really is music and connection, which is one of your basic needs, right? Because we need to connect to each other, because at our core, we're connected because we're souls. So music connects and also comes from a very deep place. But also, if you remember, imagine if you had Shwekey performing alone. Imagine you went to a concert for Shwekey and Benny Friedman and no one was in the room and it was the exact same music. You would never feel as good.
no.
Because half of what you're feeling is not the music, it's each other singing the music.
Right.
So when you take things that are the depth of why you feel and identify them, you can recreate them. Unity, right?
Charlie, what made you research it and write about it?
I guess I wanted to figure it out. I mean, this is all from Hashem. Like, I guess what I really wanted was to understand it. I wanted to understand it because once you know that you have a soul that's infinite, now it's just figuring out how you bring it out. And honestly, a lot of the stuff I stumbled into. Like, I had no idea anything about neuroplasticity until somebody sent me, I don't remember this, but I think it was even Tal Ben Shachar's class in Harvard. And then I watched it, and I think he just mentioned it. And then he mentioned a book, and then I went and got the book. Like, it was like a scavenger hunt. For years. The book took years. It wasn't I didn't sit down for a half year. And I taught it at Yeshiva University in the business school. I taught it for like 6 semesters. And every time I taught it, another time, kids started asking questions. I went down. It was iterative. It was a very long journey to get that book. Mostly trying to find it slowly.
You just mentioned kids. I wanted to ask you one of my questions that I wrote down that I wanted to ask you. I noticed with the newest generation, like my kids, they went to Orthodox schools. One, is a doctor, the other one is at Berkeley, and they still, they keep the holidays. But I noticed with the newer generation, with us, tradition was a lot more important, like certain things. And I noticed that the younger generation is a little bit going away from Yiddishkeit. Not going away, they do everything why do you think that is? And how do you think we can pull our kids back? Right. One of the things I noticed with my kids, like my kids go, I don't want to live in this community. I'm like, why not? Because for us, it's beautiful. For them, everybody's so judgmental, or everybody's this. So I know for them why they don't like certain things, and I try to explain to them, but this is separate than tradition. You might want to live somewhere else, but you can still keep certain things. Why do you think the newer generation, some of them are, I noticed that we're losing the younger generation?
So it's a great question, and there's so many answers. It's a very complex situation. I'll share with you one perspective that I think is taking place. Culture, tradition works, and when you come in from a world, at least our world, where you saw it and you appreciate it, it glues people together. I believe I got this from my rabbi in New York, Rabbi Weinberger. I believe he spoke about this. The souls of the young people, if you look around the world today, they're searching for something even deeper. If you look at the world today, everywhere you look is a movement of individuality. Like if you look around at the movements, even the movements speak to individuality. Everyone needs individual rights. There's a certain movement towards each person is celebrated, right? Whether the movements are right or wrong.
Right.
This is about politics. This is about souls.
Right.
We're, as my rabbi would say, we're moving continuously into the world of Mashiach. There are souls that are strong souls, and they're individual souls, and they search for meaning. Now, why are we okay with the tradition? I don't know. But why are they less okay? I believe it's because what they yearn for is understanding it at a deep level. They want to feel meaning and purpose. And if they don't feel the thing that they're doing is purposeful, they'll just not do it. When you grew up, when I grew up, your community existed in your geography. So you had a neighborhood. When our kids grow up, they can have their community existing on their phones. Their friends could organize on a phone. They could be global. They don't have the same tied downness that we had to your friends live on your block, right? Their friends could live on their phone, and they grew up in that world, so they could recreate community any way they want, because anything is possible when you're the town square is virtual. What moves young people is meaning. Now you're seeing this in the workforce today. They're just leaving their jobs if they're not meaningful. How are they going to support themselves? Doesn't matter. Like I just spoke about this yesterday at a company. I'm like, yeah, you would never leave your job.
Okay.
They would, because on the one hand, people say, oh, because they're snowflakes and they can't handle it. But on the other hand, it's because they want things that are meaningful and purposeful. And if you give them purpose, they'll go for it. Sometimes what the kids are starving for is to go even deeper into the religion, believe it or not. To figure it out, to understand it, to take meaning in each tradition, to not just do it, but to figure it out. And it's hard in a world that has so much coming at you. So they're stuck, right? On the one hand, they want depth. On the other hand, every second they're getting some kind of stimulus and they're stuck at the surface.
Right.
And it's causing that challenge for the young people.
That kind of leads me into my next question. Something's happening in the world where people seem to be longing for Hashem, longing for God. People seem to be conditioning themselves to see spirituality. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, what's happening is I'll tell you what. Let's break it down. Right in the book, we spoke about the self-determination theory. Right, you need to have certain basic ingredients to feel something in life, right? And if you remember the book, we spoke about how purpose and meaning is a psychological need. You could have, and they did great research, I don't think this is in the book, but they did this great research where they took baggage handlers, people that put the baggages on the turnstile, and they offered them, imagine being at an airport and you see, I don't know if they have people now, but they used to be. Yeah, people put, the airplane pulls up, they get, and they put the bags on, right? The baggage handlers, listen, on the turnstile over there, right next to you, we're offering double the salary. They're like, what do you mean? Same work, double the salary. They're like, we'll do it. They go to the turnstile, they start putting the bags on. They go, what's the catch? They go, oh, here's the catch. This second turnstile, double the salary, it's nobody's bags. You just put them on, take them off, put them on, take them off. The other one, half the salary, it's actually people's bags. Guess what? You know where they all went back to? The first turnstile. You know why? Because even if you make more money, if it's purposeless, you can't, right? We're living at a time where the kids today usually do not see lots of people that starved, right? I know my grandparents. I know them. I grew up in their home. They went to the Holocaust. My parents know it even better. My grandparents knew it even better. So therefore, we are raised in a world where if you just make enough money and you support your family, that's meaning. The next generation never saw starvation, maybe in particular cases. Why? So therefore, just making enough money and support is not meaning enough. They have to have real meaning. They have to do things that make them, that motivate them and move them. That's where we are. And so when you live in a world where you have stuff around you that doesn't mean anything to you, even if you have stuff, it doesn't mean anything. The phone doesn't mean anything, the 17th version. So you know what? You start looking deeper, and you start looking for depth. And that's why you're seeing people today going, there's got to be more. And they're starting to look for Hashem. And they're starting to look for spirituality. Because you know what? How much materialism can you get until you realize it's just materialism? Your soul will never be with materialism.
But it's funny because you're right, because my youngest one said, Ima, what should I do for a living? She looks up to her sisters. I want to be an engineer. And what happens to me? The old fashion kicks in. I'm like, well, it's really nice, but would you make enough money in this?
Exactly. Put food on the table.
Because you need to support a family, doing schools. And you know what she said to me? And, even my older daughter, she's working 18-hour days in the hospital. And she's like, I'm like, Lizzie, I wish you didn't pick this, you're working so many hours. And she's like, Ima, I never went into medicine because of money. And I'm like, you didn't? Because
why else would you work, right?
Our generation, it's like, and she said, I want to do something meaningful. I want to do something that I love. And for us, maybe we just didn't have the privilege to do that.
That's what it is. That's what it is. That's the product of people, and it's not a problem. It's actually a gift that don't have to worry about survival. Right. Now they're free to pursue meaning. Now, that's it. There's a negative to that, which is the first question, right? And if it's not meaningful, they don't do it, like certain things. But if it is meaningful, they're gonna sacrifice everything for it.
Right.
And you're
like, why do the Yentas do the Yentas? It's meaningful.
Right.
Exactly.
It's not about the big bucks.
Right.
Exactly.
Definitely not about the big bucks.
Right. And you're seeing it today. And Hashem is meaningful. And Hashem is really meaningful for people. And they're starting to connect to depth and going, I need more. And once you get on a path to depth, it's a never-ending path, and it's inside you already.
See, people just ask me and Karen because we both work, we have our own careers other than Yentas in the city. And they said, you guys go in the middle of the night and you prepare and you read all these books. But to tell you the truth, I make a lot of money in my regular career. And you know what? I love this so much more. Like when I leave, Yentas in the city, talking to somebody like you, I feel so elevated.
I'm inspired.
This is your meaning and your purpose. I totally understand, and you're being responsible, but you really are. Your soul is more connected to this work, and so it gives you meaning. If we'd be talking about dental implants, I'm sure there are people that love that. You'd be going like, when is it over? You know what I'm saying? But you're inspired by inspiration and by these concepts and ideas, and so you're blessed to do this, and we're blessed that you're doing it. That's the goal, that everybody does what they're meant to do, and then the world sort of operates in a much different way.
My husband thinks I'm insane. The other day I told him, because we are flying right now for business next weekend, and so it's getting really busy with the Yentas in the city. So the other day I'm sitting with my husband, I go, I think I'm not going to come to the office anymore. And he looks at me and he goes, are you insane? I go, but this is so much fun. And he goes, we still have to put another one through college. Then you can go with Ken to wherever you want.
Right, exactly. That's the mentality, survival, take care of it, 100%. Right.
Charlie, we could not possibly interview you without mentioning everybody. This is Unlocking Greatness, one of really good books that I read, it can help you in all aspects of life. Now, it is such a great read. You discuss the path of be, do, and have a virtualizing, being able to identify and virtualize your ideal self, which unleashes the passion you need to make that version of yourself a reality. Many individuals struggles with weight loss. I know Karen and I do. Can you please discuss how one could apply, be, do, and have? You just discuss some of it in their personal lives on a day-to-day basis.
So be, do, have is a concept that we live in a world of do, have, be. Right? And when you were raised, they told you, do a lot of work, have good grades, and be a good student, right? So most of us live in a world in which our actions come first, and then if we're lucky, at the end of it, the world will tell us that we've arrived. Do work, have money, be rich, right? Do mitzvos, have schar, be a tzaddik. Like, we live in a world, and that's how we raise our children. And the reason why we raise our children that way is because kids can't think in very esoteric ways. They're very practical children. So when they're very little, we tell them, go do work, and then you'll have good grades, then you'll get into a good college and you'll be smart. Now, your brain's neuroplastic, so you heard do, have, be in different forms, and then no one stopped that tape. And now you get into the real world and you want to be somebody, so you go out and do it first. But really it's backwards. And the reason why it's backwards is because your mind's neuroplastic, which means that every time you have a thought, the thought actually makes a connection in your mind. So thinking creates new neural connections. If you have to do something, the actions are taking direction from a brain that doesn't want to do it. So the brain is constantly basically sending the wrong signals down to the actions, which is why it's so hard to change. So let's use examples of health, eating healthy, right? You got to lose weight. Okay. When you go out to lose weight, your brain is still going, we don't eat for health, we eat for taste. So then you feel guilty. So then you got to use guilt, and the guilt doesn't work. So it lasts for a few minutes, then you go back. The problem is that you don't start with your hands, you start with your head. How do you start with your head? Well, you have a concept called visualization. Visualization means you can think things that are not yet real in this world, and your brain will start having thoughts, and so then your brain will actually see things, experience things, even just in your mind, so that when it's time to actually do the work, your brain's like, I've seen this before, right? When Olympic athletes, there is no Olympic program today, none, that I know of, in which the athlete that stands on the track doesn't, in their brain, see the race 100 times before they show up at the track. They didn't run a track yet. And if you read the book, there's tons of studies. You grow muscle just from your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're running the race, when your brain saw you winning and winning and winning and winning, your body goes, we've been here before. Even if you haven't, we've been at the gate race before. Oh, we use this muscle. And your body is primed to act. So you have to start by being. Means you have to begin by seeing who you want to be, to give your brain new connections, to give your brain new neural connections in it, so that it now has a direction to go to even before you do anything or while you're doing it. So in this case, let's we talk about health, right? Be healthy. What does a healthy person do? You're thinking about it. How do they eat? What do they eat? How do they overcome challenges? Why do I want to be healthy? What do I want to look like? You're giving your brain so many connections. And then you make a decision, so I want to be. Your soul doesn't need this world. Your soul comes from your thoughts, or your thoughts come from your soul. Now, you do the things that those people do. But your brain already knows it because you're thinking it. What do healthy people eat? And when do they eat?
The visualization aspect?
Yes. You're visualizing. And by the way, this doesn't have to be even big. I'll give you a great example. You don't want to get into a fight with somebody that you know you're going to get into a fight with. You know it's coming. You're about to walk into that house, and you know it's coming. And you don't want it to come anymore. You're done fighting with her. She's 17.
No.
Right. I don't want to fight, but I know it's going to come. You know what you do? You visualize what's going to happen, and you visualize yourself calm, and you visualize. Now, it doesn't mean the first time it's going to work, but you keep on visualizing how you want to deal with this thing. You know what's going to happen after a while? You'll be in it, and your brain will go, wait, we have two ways to go here. Which way do you want to go? You never had that option before because your brain never had exposure to that before. What people don't realize is that you make decisions because of your mind. And just because you didn't have the background or you never did it before, it doesn't mean your brain can't visualize it. And once it visualizes it enough, it becomes an option for your mind. And then you do it, and then your brain goes, hey, we could do this. I didn't know that. I didn't yell. I can't believe I didn't yell. That never happened before. This is great. And your brain goes, good job. And you get in there again. And you're like, I want to yell. And then you know what happens after a while? You walk in and you don't yell. Be, do, have. And
you ever have that experience, though, where you leave a situation and you're like, why didn't I say this and this and this?
All the time. And that, by the way, is the greatest time for growth. You see, what happens to us is we leave failure and determine that we're failures. Brings us down, then we get defensive, and then we just take it out on somebody. When you leave failure, it's the greatest time to build for the future. The greatest. Because you leave something and you say the wrong thing, God forbid, right? And you feel terrible. In the moment, you're heated, and then it breaks up. And the person leaves. And then you're like, oh. That moment, you stop and go, who do I want to be? No, really, I could be who? It's so clear who you want to be then. You're at the bottom of failure, as opposed to being defensive and then feeling guilty and then doing the whole thing and then being in negative land and then never learning, which is what so many of us live in. You go into, wait, I just failed. This is my chance now. Failure is the greatest teacher. Who do I want to be? And you visualize it. How should I have acted? And you visualize it. It feels like it's mumbo jumbo. It's hard science. Mm-hmm. Just think about it. And then what happens is the next time you get in it, it doesn't mean you get, by the way, this isn't a trick. It's time. You got to keep on doing it. It may take you 50 times. Who cares? You got a whole life. Better get it in 50 times than never get it at all.
Right.
Some point. And then you know what's happened? At some point you go, I don't want to feel like that anymore when I'm done. And then you get to that scenario, and then you go like, I'm going to feel like that. I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. That's how people change. That's really how great people change. Really, if you look at stories of great people, a lot of it is I read a book, I saw this, I acted like, or I saw my grandmother, I saw my grandfather, I was in Israel and I saw a war and I said that person who saved that. Like if you look at people's lives and you interview, a lot of it is that. They had exposure to somebody. What is that? It's B. They saw something. They weren't that person. They just saw that person. They were kids. They saw somebody and they go, I want to be that person. So you know what they did? They did the things that person did, and then they became that person.
So I have to tell you something really funny. My dad had stage 4. It's not funny, but I'll tell you what happened. You said, be that person. My dad had stage 4 cancer. They gave him 3 months to live. And I told the doctor, listen, don't tell him anything. I'm going to come and I'm going to tell him myself. To make a long story short, he found out before I got there. So I went and I said, Abba, did you hear the news? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, you're not scared? I know you're my hero, but... And he's like, no, I'm healthy and I'm going to beat this. And no doctor or anybody is going to tell me, other than Hashem, I'm not afraid of anything. And guess what? Exactly what you said. And when they put the port in his arms and he went to chemo every day for a year and he didn't show any pain. And he's like, I'm like, Dad, it doesn't hurt you. It does. He's like, no, I'm healthy and I'm going to be healthy. And you know what? Cedars actually took him for a study to find out how he survived. And thank God now he's 12 years cancer free. And they said it was his mind, it was his determination and his will to live that made him like that. So he was always my hero. So the other day he turned 80 and I said, Abba, I always wanted to be like you. I tried to act like you and eventually he's like my biggest hero. And I said, on your 80th birthday, can you tell me if I'm like you already? And he goes, yeah, you are. And I got so excited. My daddy's telling me that I'm just like him, something I always wanted, aspired to be. And then as he said that, he goes, Etty, it's not that you reached where I am. It's just at my age, I'm going down. At your age, you're going up. So we met somewhere in the middle.
I love it. That's great. That's great.
The brain is just such a powerful thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's so powerful. We take it for granted. We think we're driving a Honda Accords, great car. We got F-16s. We got F-16s in there, and that's it. We don't get excited to push our brains. We don't get excited to challenge ourselves. We don't get excited to see how I can adapt to failure, how I can build a new habit. What if I did this every day? We don't get excited to see how we could take this brain of ours and use it to the max, right? Your father does because he gets it. He didn't have to read the book to know that because of who he is. He knew right away, my brain can't go down because if I believe them, it's my brain. Right? A lot of us don't have that. And I believe it comes because in the book we speak about the trophies, right? The fact that you grow up in a world and they give you trophies and you think that's important. And you can't see your brain, so you can't see it growing. So you can't really reward it and compare it. And we love comparing people to people. And so much of our growth is stunted only because we don't double down on the resources that we have. Like if somebody wants to do something, and I'm not saying I own this, I'm not saying I'm great at this, I'm a regular guy, but if we really believed how powerful we were, like we would just walk through walls. We wouldn't, and when we hit the wall, we would just figure out how to get over the wall. Like meaning, and by the way, if anyone ever doubted this, just go to Israel and you look at a bunch of crazy people. Like David Ben-Gurion is insane. Golda Meir raised like $50 million. She didn't have enough money to pay for a plane ticket. You remember the story in 1948? Right. January 1948, before they declared a state. David Ben-Gurion called in Golda Meir and said, we don't have enough money for bullets. She was known as a schnurr. Nobody knew Golda Meir. It was not like today. It was 1948. Right. She flew to America. She didn't have enough money. They got her a spot at a Federation dinner. She raised like $25 million. Like, what? Because I believe that they knew in their core they were doing God's will. Right. This religious, that religious, I don't care about those. Those are titles I don't buy. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't buy it. They believed they were on a mission, and they knew that if they just held on, God would, and they knew it, and all of them knew it, I believe. And they did crazy things. They dropped seltzer bottles out of airplanes when they had no more bombs.
I know.
They did crazy. And when you speak to people, and I'm sure you guys, when you speak to people that were around in the 50s in Israel, you're like, you're insane. How did you survive? And they're like, we didn't think about it. We were here and we were on mission. And what they were really doing is they knew that their brains and their souls were infinite. And there was an infinite God. And when you do purposeful, meaningful things and you push yourself to the max, miracles happen. And by the way, that's our nation. That's the Maccabees, that's Avraham. Every single person from the beginning of time had the same creed. You do crazy stuff, and God's like, I like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like you. Because you don't believe this whole nature nonsense. I got it. I'm with you. Watch this.
I got you covered.
I got you covered. You right?
And we love you, Charlie. You're amazing.
Charlie, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you another question. With your kids, do you find yourself lecturing your kids about the book?
So, by the way, my kids, I was once walking with one of my children, and I'll never forget this. And we passed by, and it was like spring, and I'm like, you see, just yesterday, this tree was dead and now it's alive. You can overcome. They're like, Daddy, can you just walk to shul? Like, we're done. Stop. I'm like, no, don't you see you can make it? And they're like, enough. So my kids are like, neuroplasticity.
Does your wife feel that way as well?
No, thank God. My wife is she puts up with me. She knows I'm insane. She's come to grips with that. Like, she's good that way. My wife is wonderful. I was blessed. Thank God. I am blessed.
Thank God. Well, Charlie, we really want to thank you, Charlie, for joining us today. Your motivational speeches have captivated thousands of people around the world. Your accomplishments and the path you have chosen has inspired Etzi and I personally to do more for our community.
Thank you.
The Yentas are definitely going to take you to lunch the next time you're in Los Angeles, or
Wonderful.
dinner.
We
thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. And we really are so appreciative. And we would like to thank all of our followers for listening to this episode. Please remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Yentas in the City. You could also write to us at dearyentas@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you and answer your letters in our weekly advice column. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Soft Smart Systems International and Conquest Realty Investments. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a lot more coming. This is Karen Cohen and Etzi Elkis, and we are Yentas in the City. Remember to always be the Ruth in the room and do the right things. Stay safe and look forward to seeing you in Pesach, Charlie. Thank you.
Looking forward. Thanks so much, guys.